also analysed the cost savings associated by switching from retail price index to customer price index as an assumption for inflation. This adjustment led to cost savings in relation to the actives, deferred and pensioners' liabilities. However, the magnitude savings varied across the three groups. Liabilities dropped from £37 million to £34 million, £7 million to £6 million, and £47 million to £46 million for active members, deferred members and pensioners, respectively. Therefore, this would result in a combined cost savings of £5 million. Next, we analysed the effect of changing valuations based on final salaries to instead focus on a career average revalue scheme. This adjustment only affected the active members of the scheme. When the change was implemented, active member liabilities fell from £37 million to just over £7 million, generating a saving of £29 million savings from below. The final area we looked at was the introduction of 0% increases on all future pension accruals. From our analysis, this had the greatest effect on decreasing the liability of the pension scheme. The process in order to introduce such a change to generate a valuation required recalculating the pre- and post-1997 pensions separately, depending on whether the individual member was currently receiving a 0% increase, a 4% increase, or an increase associated with RPI. After recalculating the pension payments, the active member's liability fell to £27 million, with the deferred liability decreasing to £6 million. The pensioner liability decreased by the largest amount, falling from £47 million to around £35 million, thus the total saving of £22 million.
I'm now just going to give you a brief conclusion on what we presented. On the basis of the original assumptions, the XYZ pension scheme was valued at around £91 million. The value of the assets at this time of valuation was £75 million. Therefore, the funding level for the scheme standard at 82.8%, with a deficit approaching £16 million. In order to bring the funding level for the scheme to 100% over the next 10 years, annual payments of just over £1.8 million would have to be made by the employer, assuming payments were made in advance and at an interest rate of 4%. As part of this presentation, we also advised the trustees against maintaining the current allocation of assets solely in equities due to the volatile nature and inherent risks associated with such assets. We recommended that a much more sustainable approach would be adopting a considerably varied asset base consisting of equities, gilts and corporate bonds. We feel such a diversification of the scheme's asset portfolio should provide a stronger foundation for enhanced asset performance, which will help overcoming the funding deficit. We also investigated how variations in our assumptions would affect valuations. By varying the pre-retirement interest rate, salary growth, inflation rate and the life expectancy of pensioners, our analysis concluded that active members' liability varied by approximately 5 to 7% when the interest rate or salary growth increases or decreases by 0.5%. Deferred members' liability varied by around 7 to 8%, either the interest rate of inflation changed by 0.5%. Finally, having considered improvements in pensioner life expectancy, we noticed that pensioners' liability increased by over £1.2 million for each additional year the pensioners are receiving payment. In conclusion, we also analysed how the liabilities of the scheme could be affected by a number of different cost-saving methods, such as changing the accrual rate and associating the inflation assumption with CPI rather than RPI. From our analysis, we have determined that by changing valuations based on final salaries to instead focus on career average revalue schemes, this has the greatest effect on reducing the scheme's liabilities. And I welcome any questions that you may have about our valuation.